All right, all right. Hello, all my wonderful, wonderful people. If you do not mind typing in your name in the chat and just saying where you're from, where we're watching from. It's such an honor to have you all here today. All right. We got a good group here. We got a great group. All right. If you want to type in the chat where we're coming from. Staten Island. Hello, Allie. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I want to type in the chat your name and where you're coming from, where you're watching from today. Stony Brook University. Hello, Michael. Nice to meet you. All right. All right. How many people we have? We got 15 people. This is going to be a great session. We got Allison from Princeton University. Hello. Nice to meet you. All right. We're going Zoom style today. Hello, hello. Alyssa from Stony Brook University. Hello. Hello, hello. Gonna give it a little bit of time. I know people are still coming in. We got 17 people. Wonderful, wonderful. Hello, hello. All right. We got, I do not want to mispronounce your name. We got someone from representative from Teachers College. I do not want to mispronounce your name, but it's a wonderful, beautiful name. I just don't want to mispronounce it. Jen of Vive, did I pronounce that right? Jen Vive. Okay, Genevieve. I hope I got that correct. Awesome. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Beautiful name. Names are very important. I do not want to butcher them. They're very important. All right. All right, everybody. So it is 11:03. I know we have a very sharp deadline, so I don't want to go over the time. So I just want to start off first and foremost. Thank you everybody for taking the time today and coming onto my session. I know it's virtual. I know we all want to be in person, but I want to make this the best possible experience for you. What we're going to be learning today is intergroup dialogue. Intergroup dialogue is my expertise, I would like to say. I received training last year and I just became so immersed in it. I just loved it so much, and I just said I need to do something like this. I know a lot of us are practitioners and always looking to get in different conversations, involved in conversation with different people. And sometimes when we enter those conversations, we're not always prepared. We're not always knowing what to expect, or we never took a deeper dive into our own identities. And that's what we're here to learn today. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to as well ask me if you want to unmute yourself. But I want to kick off with my name. My name is Giovanni Negron-Garcia. You can refer to me as Gio. I'm a student in leadership specialist and DEI champion coming out of Kutztown University of Pennsylvania and the PA State System of Higher Education. I'm a current graduate student earning my master's degree, finishing up in December. So I'm excited about that. And I'm so excited to be here with you all today. All right. If we were in New York, but I still want to acknowledge this land acknowledgement. The land we lived here during the colonization of the Americas. The plaque recognized the indigenous people of Manhattan and their displacement and disposition continue the presence, and it stands as a reminder to reflect on our past as we contemplate our way forward. And the source is from Columbia University. So I just have a couple rules as we engage in intergroup dialogue. Just a couple rules to consider. If you plan to share, feel free to unmute yourself. If you prefer to use the chat, please feel free to use that as well. But these are just some of the rules that when we engage in intergroup dialogue, it may get vulnerable. Some of us are going to be sharing experiences different from one another. We may have different views, but the whole point is that we maintain a safe environment, a safe space for all of us to share our views because you never know. Someone may have a different perspective from you, and it may create an engaging dialogue, and that's what we're here for. So just a couple of rules here. I won't read it all the way down. I don't want to bore you, but a couple of rules. Number one, respectful communication. Speak respectful and listen actively. Avoid interrupting and giving everyone an opportunity to express their thoughts. Remain open-minded. This is a space where we're empathetic. Uh, Try to use I statements rather than to express your feelings rather than making assumptions about others. Confidentiality, whatever happens and spoken here, it stays here. That's how we create the safe space. So I like to say the Las Vegas rule. Uh, Please stay engaged. The more that we engage, the more that we create this dialogue, the better. Please feel free to challenge assumptions. Some of us may have assumptions, and it's okay to get challenged sometimes. Once again, use I statements, acknowledge differences, stay on topic, being mindful of power dynamics. Some of us in this room may be students, some of us may be professionals and longtime professionals. Feedback and reflection, and then commit to action. So definitely there's going to be a call for action at the end of this, and I'll make sure to share with all of you today. So I just wanted to start off with an icebreaker, just to enter dialogue mode. I know many of us have went to college, and during college, food was a huge thing, and it was a huge thing for me. And I'm always curious when I do intergroup dialogue. I'm always curious in the crowd, what was your favorite college cheat meal? Um, and what I mean by cheat meal, what was that one meal that you love to indulge in? It wasn't great for you, or it probably was great for you, but it was that one thing. And if you want to use the chat, please feel free. What was your favorite college cheat meal? I know mine's. I know when I got my refund check and I was away from ramen noodles. I know my favorite cheat meal was Domino's pizza and a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Very calorie heavy, but I felt great after the nap. So what we got here? We got Chick-fil-A. We got pizza at midnight. That's a that's a huge one, especially coming from New York. That has to be a huge one. Zilly fries at Villanova. Okay, waffle with ice cream. Oh, that's Buffalo Wild Wings, Taco Bell. We got great ones here. Uh, Taco Bell, Wendy's 4 for $4. That got me through college. I can tell you that. Or foot-long sandwich ordered on the meal plan dollars. Okay. So we got flex dollars. I know I definitely use mine. Breaded chicken sandwich that my friends and I got to add to the menu. Oh, you added a chicken sandwich to the menu. Look at you. That's unique. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Anybody else wants to share before we move on? All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for engaging. That's wonderful. I know definitely food gets me excited, but um, all right. So I just want to break the ice a little bit. So when we're talking about intergroup dialogue, what we're experiencing today is more of an introduction to intergroup dialogue and explaining what it is. Intergroup dialogue can be seen as a four-stage model. You have stage one, being group beginnings, like what we're doing today, where we're forming and building relationships with the people in your community. This is where you really are entering a stage where some people may be vulnerable. People really want to open themselves up, and you really get to know them in a different perspective. This is where people really dive in to their identity traits, personal and social. And this is where we really get to know each other. Stage two is exploring the nature of social identity. And that's where you're looking at your social identity traits. This is where we really dig deep into our backgrounds and as well as where we came from and what really influenced some of our barriers that we face, or what really influenced some of our progressiveness in society. And then stage three, this is where it gets a little bit heated. This is where it gets a little bit uncomfortable, exploring and discussing hot topics. This is where we really have grown comfortable with our community, but this is where we start expressing our views, whether that's political, whether that is something that is opposing of your own views. Stage three takes more time. And this is where we really have to dive deep and we really have to face confrontation. I know confrontation is not always the best thing, but it is healthy, especially when you're trying to build a community um, full of people who may be different from you. And I think it's important that we continue to engage with each other. And then stage 4 is action planning and alliance building. This is where we create an action plan. How do we hold each other accountable? How do we create a call to action and build an alliance so that we can continue being in a productive space, so that we can continue working together? All right, it's 11:11, everybody, make a wish. And to explain more in detail what intergroup dialogue is a face-to-face facilitated conversation between members of 2 or more social identity groups. The goal of intergroup dialogue is to create new levels of understanding, relating, and action. Intergroup dialogues are usually face-to-face facilitated conversations between members of different social identity groups, yet anyone can use the model to develop critical communication skills that are necessary both inside and outside the classroom. And I know if we were face to face today, we will be talking it up in the room, but we can definitely do it through Zoom. But there's a lot of benefits to intergroup dialogue, and just from a study that one of the studies that I sourced here, after investigating the effectiveness of intergroup dialogue, it concluded that students who held the program in high regard showed an increase in frequency of thinking about racial group membership, perspective taking ability, comfort in communication across differences, positive beliefs about conflict, and interest in bridging differences. Now, I do conduct intergroup dialogue with first-year seminar courses at Kutztown University through the Multicultural Center. And what I find very interesting is usually when I ask students to communicate with each other, I ask them to pair up with somebody they don't know, someone who is different from themselves. And what I really love is that when they're sharing their stories, they're sharing their identity traits, and they're sharing some of the barriers that they have. Some of them really understand what empathy is. They really want to listen, and they themselves initiate that conversation. How can they bridge the gap? How can they be friends? How can they help each other? And it's a beautiful thing to see. Um, and not only can you do this with your students, you can do this in the workforce as well. Being when I was in facilitator training for intergroup dialogue, um, me and my colleagues, we did not know each other that well. We were working in different departments, and things can get very busy. And when we really got to sit down and get an understanding of each other, I did not know um, the stories of my colleagues. They were always upbeat. They were always seeming they were very well kept, and I did not know about the background. And it really opened my eyes to really just giving people a chance to express themselves, and as well as open a room. And as well as some people may have bad assumptions, and maybe those assumptions weren't challenged, and some people appreciated that. So just steer them in the right direction. My phone is going off. I think I'm famous. All right. So when we look at intergroup dialogue, you're looking at the difference between debate, discussion, and dialogue. And the whole point of being in intergroup dialogue is being in dialogue mode. And now dialogue means is a collaboration toward common understanding. The goal is to listen with an open spirit and to create an openness to learning from mistakes and biases. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is get in debate mode. Now, what does that mean? Now, I can ask here, I don't know who here is a football fan, but I could say that the Eagles are the best team ever and they're going to win the Super Bowl. Now, I know many of you are probably going to go in the chat and say that's completely far from the truth. The Giants are the best team in the NFL, or the Jets, or whoever you may be. The whole point is that we do not want to get in debate mode, because usually when you're in debate mode, the goal is to win. And the purpose of intergroup dialogue is that you necessarily don't want to win the conversation. You want to be able to create the dialogue so that it's an open space for everybody, for people to get their points across, and as well as to continue to build from that. You don't want to be in debate mode. And as well as discussion. It's an exchange of ideas, information, and opinions. And the goal is to persuade others that your position is right. Again, the goal here with intergroup dialogue is not to be right or to win. You want to create dialogue so that it continues the conversation. And there's something to build upon. All right. Now, if we were in person, I would have been talking about the social identity and personal identity wheel, but since we're not in person, if you happen to have a piece of paper near you, or if you want to use the chat, I want to talk about some of our social and personal identity. And I want to start off with the social identity wheel. Um, Basically, this is where we will encourage participants to consider their identities critically and how identities are keenly felt. And just to look at we're going to actually start with the personal identity wheel. Um, so this is where we're really just identifying things like one skill you're proud of, your personal model, your number of siblings, three adjectives to describe yourself. These are more of your descriptors. This is where you really say these things. If people think about these things, this is what people will know about me. And just to point a few things out here, my favorite movies, The Avengers. I have three siblings. I am the youngest with my birth order. My personal motto is to go inspire others. When you're looking at personal identity, you're looking at adjectives here. Um, and then when you look at social identity, this is where we do a little bit more deeper. You're looking at gender, you're looking at sex, sexual orientation, age, religious and spiritual affiliation, ethnicity, um, there's more identities that you have to think deeper about. And I do encourage you, if you're in spaces with students or just within your colleagues, I do encourage you to print out these worksheets where you can actually find them through the University of Michigan. And this is where the worksheets are actually found through the inclusive learning model. And actually, University of Michigan is pretty much the individuals who initiated the intergroup dialogue, and they did a lot of research behind it. So I do highly encourage you, if you do have the chance, to fill out these personal identity wheels, and as well encourage your colleagues and students to do it as well, and see what you come up with, and see what's different amongst yourselves, and talk about those differences. It does surprise you, especially for someone you may not know. All right, everybody. So it is 11:18. So I want to be able to create some dialogue with you. Now, this is going to be an open space. You are more than welcome to share what you want to share. I say utilize the chat. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to emphasize what they feel. And as well as there's going to be a couple questions. None of these questions are too controversial. I believe they are very surface level. And if you want to share, you're more than welcome. If you prefer to stay reserved, um, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So let's create some dialogue. So I'm going to start off very light. I wish I was in New York to ask this, but within the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, does New York have the best pizza in the United States? And feel free to use the chat if you want. Personally, I believe this statement. I think New York has wonderful pizza. 100%. 100% yes, and especially specifically in Staten Island. Okay, does anybody oppose to that? Does anybody oppose that pizza is not that great in New York? All right, it looks like oh, nope. I'm not sure, but I can definitely say it's better than Boston, as that what I've been stuck with for a few years. I do agree with that. I am in Pennsylvania. We don't. All right. I think a lot of me. Okay. I think a lot of mediocre pizza sneaks by. Yes, New York pizza is the best. All right. New York is where it's at. So we got a lot of love for New York. That's awesome. I am with you. I'm from Pennsylvania. We don't have the best pizza. I can admit that. Maybe I haven't been to many places, but that's awesome. All right, everybody. Next question, and feel free to use the chat on whatever you're comfortable with. see who wants to go. Okay, so let's ask this question, and I want you to reflect on this. I'm going to get everybody about maybe 2 to 3 minutes if you want to utilize the chat. How has your social and personal identity affected the support you receive today? So I'm going to get everybody 2 to 3 minutes to answer this. If you're more than welcome, if you rather stay reserved, please. And please be honest and open to different perspectives being shared. Please utilize the chat, or if you, after using the chat, if you would like to share what you wrote, you're more than welcome. And I will share my perspective on this as well. If you are open to answer this question, you are welcome to utilize the chat whenever you are ready. I will make sure to share my perspective on this as well. While everyone is reflecting on this question, I just wanted to say and provide my answer. When it comes to my social and personal identity, it has affected the support that I receive. Some identifiers that I possess is I'm actually deaf in my right ear. I'm Latino. I'm a first generation student, and I grew up with a disadvantaged background. I'm growing up in Reading, Pennsylvania. I grew up in poverty, and it did affect the support that I received. It affected the way people viewed me, especially how they defined my disability, and especially someone who has a background with poor mental health. It has created barriers in how people view mental health, and especially when I try to get out there. And as a Latino student and being bilingual, por mi gente que habla español, um, it has created some spaces where I did not feel like I belonged. It has made me question some of the disability services, especially for hearing impaired students. I remember going my first year at Kutztown University, and they could not really accommodate me, which I was really surprised. Um, but it definitely affected the support that I receive today. And so that's my view on that. I just want to read some of the questions. I'm going to start with the first one. All right, Teresa, from a Cuban immigrant family, there's a sense of feeling like I shouldn't ask for help because others had it worse in my family. Okay, all right. Thanks for sharing that, Teresa. My social and personal identities as being from a lower socioeconomic background, as well as being an older sister, has made my support look a bit okay. Of course, does not. While also supporting myself through college and graduate school. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Whitney. Okay. I think my personal social identity has allowed access to education, healthcare, etc. It also given me privilege and power from birth. All right. It came out 2 years ago at 27 years old and was straight up passing up. Until then, I freed me personally, but also gave me the ability to be more vulnerable. I felt very supported by my prior supervisor, who was also in the community. I'm now able to help others who are going through the same. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that, Michael. I love that for you. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing that. Michael, I also think social identity has given me advantages and privileges from birth that have helped. Okay. Allie, I had access to a robust set of resources applying to grad school because of my identity. And now I'm fortunate to attend grad school that offers a ton of resources in emerging professions. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you everybody for sharing that. I know sometimes sharing these things are not always great, especially being in a room full of people you may not know. But again, this is why we create these spaces, and thank you all for sharing. All right, let's move on to the next question. And this one, when I asked this in person, this really lit up the room. Everybody had a different perspective on this, but do you believe everyone has equal opportunity for success? I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to reflect on that. If you have your answer, feel free to use the chat. I'm going to be providing my perspective on this, and feel free to challenge me. But that's why I'm here. I like to be challenged and educated. But yeah, do you believe everyone has equal opportunity for success? And it can be anywhere, education, the workplace, however you view it. All right, everybody, if you feel free, if you want to answer the question, feel free to use the chat. You are more than welcome to raise your hand and answer. If you want to talk in your mic, feel free. But what are your thoughts on this? Oh, it's on the wrong question. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. Do you believe everyone has equal opportunity for success? Now, based on my experience and lived experiences and what I've went through, and being in different spaces in higher education, and experiences outside of higher education, I personally do not believe everyone has an equal opportunity for success, especially some of the barriers that I faced, just with some of my identifiers. I don't believe everyone has equal opportunity to success. And I'm just also looking at other demographics. I'm also looking at different individuals who have different barriers, especially are they welcome in the spaces that does promote success? Or do they have the same opportunities? Do they have the same access? And that's something I do look at as well. Accessibility. Does everybody have the same accessibility to succeed? But that's my perspective on that. Let me see what everybody's saying in the chat. All right, we got Allison. I don't believe that everyone innately has equal opportunity success. Factors such as access to quality education, extracurricular programs, social and economic status play a huge role in frequency and quality of opportunities that people have available to them. Okay, thank you for sharing, Allison. Whitney, no, I don't believe that, but I do believe that should have equal opportunity to be successful in their life, whatever success means to them. Great perspective, Whitney. No, systematic oppression in different areas prevents everyone from having equal opportunity for success. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. All right, making Michael equal. No, I think everyone can be successful, but for some, it takes a lot more work. More work, time, support, money, and struggle. Okay. I think the short answer to this question is no. though we can debate about the reason that is true, everyone's background and their upbringing, disability privilege do not allow for everyone to have. I, however, believe that there is an obligation of those us in power to do everything we can to provide equity and opportunity. Awesome perspective. Awesome perspective, Jeffrey. All right. Does anybody else wants to share before we continue? Does anybody think differently? Does anybody believe that we do have equal opportunity for success? And it's okay to think that way. All right. So we're going to move on to the third question. I believe it's only one more. What does the word community mean to you? And what does it take to build and maintain a community? So it's a two-part question. I'll give you a little bit more time to answer this. Community can mean a lot of things to people. And I know what it means to me. I know coming from a Puerto Rican household, community means a lot. It means a lot to me, especially what it takes to maintain that community. And holding and accountability looks different in communities. So what does the word community mean to you? And what does it take to build and maintain one? I'm going to give you a little bit of time to answer that two-part question, reflect on that, and we'll see where we go from there. And feel free whenever you're ready to use the chat. And I just want to say thank you everyone for staying with me. I know this would have been a whole different experience if we were in person. But thank you so much again for taking your time today, being with me and learning more about intergroup dialogue. I think it's interesting stuff. That's just me. But it's always good in spaces to learn, to hear different people's perspectives and to learn new things. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your presence. All right, what does the word community mean to you, and what does it take to build and maintain a community? So I will kick it off here while everybody's responding. Um, what the word community means to me is togetherness, it's belonging, it's being comfortable. I know what community means to me is um, waking up in the morning, hearing my mother having a having the meeting with herself. She's arguing why nobody's cleaning the house, but everybody's just around the kitchen table eating breakfast, just having a good time, listening um to Gran Combo de Puerto Rico. Just that's what community looks like to me. Everybody's just having a good time, saying good morning to everybody, and just coming together. Um, and what it takes to build and maintain a community is understanding, it's empathy, it's being able to have tough conversations. It takes accountability, and as well as bringing awareness to issues that may not have been brought up before. And those are tough conversations. In order to maintain a community, you need to grow it, you need to advance it, and we cannot remain stuck in our ways all the time. Sometimes things work, sometimes things don't. And especially as we look towards future generations and we want them to grow, we want them to take the lead. Um, it takes a community to do that. It, we need to come together, have these tough conversations sometimes, and do it for them. That's how I view community. All right, everybody. I'm going to read the chat right now. All right, make sure I didn't go too far. Whitney says, community, connection to me. I think that community and connection require relationship building. While some communities are organic and in it based on our social and personal identities. Community to me is a support system. I'm privileged to have support from my family, friends, and colleagues. I'm also grateful to have support from my LGBTQ plus community. That's beautiful, Alyssa. In order to build a community, you need to be vulnerable and give back to support that is given to you. I think communities are built upon foundation of trust, kindness. Everyone plays their own important role and necessary for the community to thrive. Michael, a quote I heard that always resonates with me. I'd rather be excluded for who I included than included for who I excluded. Sorry, I got new glasses. I apologize if I'm stumbling on words, everybody. Wow, that's wonderful. I gotta write that down. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. That's wonderful. I view community in very human terms, and it's the people who walk beside you, even if you just fall short period chapter of your life. They make you feel seen, heard, and supported, even if you can't fully understand your experience and perspective. To me, community is connectedness. Building community usually requires a certain extent of common ground, similarities to extent, whether it's similar identities, experiences, and physical location interests. And from there, you grow form deeper relationships that move beyond that. And Michael, I think community means to me connections that encourage exchange perspectives, understanding to maintain a community. I respect openness and actively seeking to understand others is important. Awesome, everybody. I love this. You're very engaged. You're all very engaging. I love it. Great answers, great, fantastic perspectives. And again, community means something different to everyone. And the reason I really love asking this question is because everyone comes from a different community and what they've been exposed to. I've experienced some individuals who don't know what community means, that they don't have a definition for it. They may not have grown up in a good community. They may not have had that supportive community, that support system that some of us were referring to. So it's hard for them to answer a question like this, especially for individuals who have oppressed identities. You know, they don't sense community anywhere that they feel, and it's problematic. And working with some of the students that I have the pleasure of working with, I had students, I asked this question to them, and they said they feel alone. They don't have a community. Some students I've worked with, they grew up in the foster system and just continuously going home to home, and they never felt a sense of community. So it's great to see these different perspectives and help to understand what that means. It's not the easiest, but working with them it's an honor. But thank you everybody for sharing. That was the last question. But thank you everybody for contributing. And again, if you have the opportunity to do this with your staff, or if there's an opportunity you want me to do something like this virtual with everybody, please let me know. I'm probably I should drop my email in the chat. I have a QR code too at the end for everybody to scan if you want to stay connected. But you know, this is important. I truly believe if you have these types of conversations with your colleagues, with your students, it just opens a whole new level of understanding. It opens a whole new level of your community and when you're trying to build it. And I like to do a call to action. So I always like to end everything, make sure that what's the follow-up? Where do we go from here? I challenge you to join the conversation. I want you to participate in intergroup dialogue, to share your story, be comfortable. I know it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes, but especially when we're in these leadership positions, people do look up to you and the people do want you to open up. And I hope you have that space and that community that you're able to do that. Learn from others, you know, challenge yourself to learn from others. Discover the strength in our collective narrative. I challenge you to facilitate change. Become a dialogue facilitator. As I mentioned before, the University of Michigan, they have this available through their inclusive model. And there's tons of videos, and also I could be your resource. If you're looking to become a dialogue facilitator, I believe there's individuals who do host different facilitation sessions. I am not completely advanced. I'm still learning myself, but empower others to navigate challenging conversation, foster understanding. Intergroup dialogue, integrate dialogue in the curriculum. If you're working with students, if you're working with your colleagues, integrate it in what you educate people on. Advocate for the inclusion of intergroup dialogue in academic programs. Let's make it an integral part of the learning journey. And then promote diversity and inclusion. Support initiatives that celebrate diversity, from events to policies. Let's ensure our campus is a reflection of the world we want to live in. So those are just some of the things I challenge you to do. It can get uncomfortable, but we need you. And that's the important thing. We need you, we see you, and we hear you. And we want to make sure that you have a space that you feel supported in. And that's what intergroup dialogue does create, not only for students, but for everyone working within higher ed and beyond. And then these are just some of the references that I have. Let me just check the time here. Perfect. I do have time for questions. Some of the references here, you're more than welcome to list them down. You can see a lot of the same people reference, but there's just a lot of great work, especially everything that I've learned from here, and a lot to take in. And also, I have a QR code because it's 2024. Who doesn't have a QR code? You are more than welcome to connect with me. That is my virtual business card. But I want to stay connected. I am a graduate student at Kutztown University, and I will be graduating in December. Just looking to build my network and just meet new people. It's always fun to meet new people, especially someone who does intergroup dialogue. But I am open to any and all questions. If you have any, you're more than welcome. Please let me know how I did. I was a little nervous this morning, but I'm just happy that you all took the time today to join me. I know it's a little awkward when we're doing this through Zoom, but you are all awesome. Thank you so much for getting involved and, doing what we can at this capacity. So thank you so much. I will mute my mic. You're more than welcome to ask me any questions, and I will be here to answer them. Oh, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for letting me be in your presence today. Yes, hopefully I will you will see me in Philly if you go to Philly. Oh, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. It is much needed. We got a semester coming up. Thank you so much. I look forward to being in Philly. Hopefully I'm presenting in Philly as well. But thank you so much. This is awesome. This is an awesome space to be with you all in the comfort of my room. All right. So does anybody have any questions before I hop off? And you're more than welcome to unmute yourself. All right. Let me just stop the share. All right. Thank you, everybody. I believe I listed my email there. Let me just